Hey, Charlie, thanks for joining us today. We'll give it another minute or two and allow some folks to hop in. I see some folks are coming in right now.
All right. Thanks, AJ.
Thanks all for joining us today. We'll get started shortly. I'm dialing in here from the Bay Area up in Palo Alto at the Broadcom offices, and Charlie's in sunny, perfect weather all the time, San Diego. Charlie, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here. Hope this is a great webinar for everybody.
I'm sure it will be. All right. Well, how about we get started now? I just want to say again, thank you all for joining us today to today's Tanzu webinar. Today we have very good friend of the program, Charlie, joining us today for another presentation. Just a few housekeeping items. We'd love to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions for us, there should be a questions tab below. Ask us any questions. We'll answer them live throughout today's presentation. We'll also send out some relevant assets and links in the chat as well. So keep an eye out for that once we start this presentation. Now, I know that you guys aren't here to look at me or to hear from me, so I'll just disappear for a bit and I'll hand it off to you, Charlie.
All right. Hi, Charlie Black here. I'm the Director of Product for GemFire. So that means I'm the guy that interfaces and listens to you all. If you have any questions, I'm here to help answer them. Today we're going to be talking about some geospatial things, right? And I was thinking about logistics when I was making the deck, so it's about that. But we'll get into all the different use cases that you can do with logistics and some of the things I've done in my life here at VMware. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little introduction into GemFire. We're going to talk about the main thing that I'm using in this example, because I have a little demo, is the search capabilities of it. We're going to be doing some geospatial queries. I'm going to do a demo, and the source code will be made available so that way everybody can look at it. And we'll have that little Q&A session. All right, so I'll be able to answer any questions that popped up during the meeting. If you want to learn more about GemFire, just gemfire.dev. You'll see all the documentations, how to download it, examples, blogs, videos, all that good stuff on learning more about it. But let's dive in with a personal view here. So what is GemFire, right? So that's probably, some people already know about it, some people don't. I always like to start out with what it is for the new people. So GemFire is a in-memory data grid, right? So what is an in-memory data grid? You know, the industry is having a hard time even just knowing what that is, right? So it's hard to find some literature on it. But at the end of the day, it's a key value object store. So that means you store your keys and your objects there. So it's pretty easy to use, right? The main APIs that get input, I'll touch on that in a moment. It's all memory oriented, right? So we're going to be trying to look at how to utilize RAM burst. However, we can use that disk as well, right? So you can use GemFire as a persistent database as well. We have customers that are storing terabytes, they're approaching petabytes of storage. You know, it is a first-class database that can store your, you know, data and keep it safe. One of the major architectural decisions on GemFire is it's a shared nothing architecture. That just means, hey, if I need more throughput, I could just add more compute. Every compute node that I put on there is going to add more CPU, disk, RAM. It just scales out, right? It's faster than most of the relational databases. In fact, some customers just use GemFire because it's already, you know, they're traditionally a SQL company, but they're like, you know, it just takes so long to do that ORM mapping. So they just store all their objects in GemFire and only just use that backend databases for the old legacy applications that they can't move forward. Active everywhere, multi-site, redundancy zones. We got all the check boxes on keeping that data synced and safe. And we could keep that integration with other databases and other systems. It's either synchronous or asynchronous. So lots of flexibility with GemFire. but at the end of the day, it's pretty simple to use. I just wanted to touch one more on it. I touched on it a little bit, how the shared nothing architecture. Well, let's just say I did need a scale. Well, I can just easily add another node, bring it up online, handle that scale out time, and you know what? You want to shrink it back down, easy to do. The applications don't see any changes, right? So they're just fine and dandy, just running everything. GemFire handles the hard problem of getting that new server online and no interruption of data loss, service or data loss. So really awesome, dynamic, really good things, right? So you don't have to reshard or recalculate or redeploy apps. It's all just online, something that we test with every day, customers use every day. I talk a little bit about performance in general, so I just want to make sure that we all have a baseline on, what does performance mean, right? Grace Hopper back in the day explained it pretty well to some military folks, and she translated in these small infinitesimal things that we're talking about in our compute area, and hey, let's convert that over to a number that makes sense to us all. So what I said was, all right, in 1 nanosecond light travels this far, and then I said, all right, well, now that I got that, well, let's just turn it into walking pace. So I took my walking pace and I said, all right, how fast can we retrieve the same information from the various storage mechanisms that are out there today, right? RAM, 7 minutes, right? I can walk pretty, that's an easy walk. Just pulling off of NVMe's or SSDs, 2 hours and 27 minutes, right? That's a huge difference. So when we're talking about performance with GemFire, it's on another level, right? You were probably pretty happy when you saw your first computer that updated from a old spinning Rust disk drive, and you're like, man, my computer is pretty awesome. Well, wait till you see some stuff coming out of GemFire with the in-memory data speeds that we have. Hopefully that helps out everybody out whenever I talk about performance. It's just definitely the next level. So where can GemFire run? Well, it can run just about anywhere you want it to, right? Definitely running on all the VMware properties, VMware Tanzu, vSphere, you want to run on your virtual infrastructure, Kubernetes, OpenShift, public clouds, private clouds, hybrids, right? We have customers that are running, scale out from their on-premise to cloud when they're using our WAN to keep the data centers in sync. And it's really good stuff. It's really flexible, really awesome things. And we do have a good portion of our customers trying to get every iota of their bare metal performance out of their systems. So we definitely have some customers in that area. So I talked a lot about what it is, just so that way we know what it is, what makes up a GemFire. Well, we have a GemFire locator, and what that is it's an ability to give our system that dynamic behavior, right? It's service discovery, if you want to think about it. It does a little bit more than that. It helps out with calculating load balances, and there's some quorum algorithms because we are a distributed system, so there are some things that you have to figure out in a distributed architecture. It helps out with that. You don't need many of them out there. I typically recommend 3 for that quorum and disaster, figuring out when there is a disaster, that quorum helps out. However, you can run 1, 2, 2 is HA, but 3 is pretty good. GemFire's going more than that, it's kind of like a little bit overkill. GemFire servers, that's where we actually store our data, right? So that's where the data gets stored. And this is the part where you would want to scale out or scale up. And it has the same kind of concepts with, like, if you deploy 1, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, what happens when there is an HA event? So, you can deploy 2. What if I want to do a rolling upgrade and survive an HA event? Well, you deploy 3. And then after that, it's all about how big do you want to go, right? And then since I was touching on some disaster scenarios, we also have an ability to keep data centers in sync, so you can stretch that data across multiple data centers, right, with using our GemFire WAN. So it's really good stuff there. I'm going to say this word. I want to make sure I define it. So I talked a little bit about data storage. You have many different ways of storing things in GemFire, right? And the main storage concept is what we call a region. And at the end of the day, it's just a concurrent hash map that holds the key value pairs. So you have these named regions, and I can have multiple concurrent hash maps out there in the system. So if you have your customers, your orders, your positions, your location of your objects, your inventory, whatever that is for your industry, you just create a couple of regions that map to your specific domain. So I kept on mentioning, I just want to make sure I illustrate it. So the main APIs for GemFire is a put. So like, let's say I'm doing an insert of a customer object. I just do my insert of a key and a value. And then when I want to go get that, I just do a get on that key. Couldn't be any simpler. And like I mentioned before, concurrent hash map is what regions implement. So key value store, that's the reason why I kind of mentioned that on that slide. One thing that separates GemFire from a traditional system out there, everything that's like anything that you do to store in GemFire, any puts, you can get events off of that put in many different ways, right? So we can get it from a client perspective, right? We can just say, give me the fire hose. I can drill it down to certain keys. I could also set up a where clause where I can say, you know what, I only want to see exceptional events where, say, my price is greater than $100. So now I can get that exceptional event that I'm interested in, where it's running on the servers, and my worker nodes, my clients that are out there, could be listening for those events. They could also, all those listening things I just talked about, they could also be durable, right? So the worker might have crashed because it's not as good as GemFire. Just kidding. But you get the idea. If your system crashed for whatever reason, maybe it was just a rolling upgrade and it needed to be taken out, GemFire can actually keep all the durable messaging, all those events durable for you. Another one that I like to do as well is I could actually put the events inside the servers, right? So if I wanted to do some kind of competing consumer pattern, I can do it also on the servers. That also gives you like a 0 millisecond lookup time, because I no longer have to go over the network. There's a lot of power that can come from there. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about some geospatial stuff. So just want to make sure I talk about the GemFire WAN. This allows us to also do the, besides disaster recovery, I can also bring that goodness of GemFire servers around the world, right? New York, London, Tokyo. Basically bring that data local access, right? So if I'm on a cell phone doing something, I can actually have it geospatially sent to the right data center to get the lowest latency. All right, let's talk about what we actually came here for this webinar. So this demo that I'm going to do is for Geospatial, is built on GemFire Search, right? It utilizes Apache Lucene, so you can do all the full text searches that you wanted to do there. You can even do some, vector, storing some embeddings, some vector database works with Lucene. So it's got some really cool things built into this GemFire Search. In fact, we offer something called GemFire Vector DB, which is a REST interface provided on top of GemFire. Anyway, Let's talk about geospatial. So one thing that Lucene also gives us is the ability to do complex geospatial queries, right? So I got my geometries and I want to make sure that something matches, it hits or intersects or whatever the pattern is that you're doing with your geospatial, it's built into it. Since we built it on top of GemFire, super high performance, right? We're scale out, there's no, the tenets of that shared nothing architecture are in place. So your Lucene indexes are gonna be super fast. You're not getting enough throughput, throw more nodes on it. It's really good stuff. Scalable and real-time updates. So don't forget, we are in a memory data grid system. That's what we're about, is being able to make sure that those indices are always up to date in real time with the speed of your data. So let's talk a little bit more, or focus in on some use cases. Most of these are ones that I kind of even done. So my background is military and Department of Defense, and I use GemFire to track things that are around the world, right? So missile launches, we got some friendly people, some hostile people, planes, trains, automobiles, you get it. We were tracking it. It was all, the data dissemination was all done with GemFire. And we were using it in some interesting ways where maybe it was disconnected, intermittent, and low latency kind of network. So think satellites or whatever it is. And GemFire was working on it just fine with those durable connections. Customer service optimizations. So this was, like, hey, I'm driving around in the world, in the world, and my vehicle breaks down. So the call into the call center, say, hey, where am I at? Instead of having the customer say, I'm near the tree and a bush with some dirt around it, we actually the vehicles would be reporting where they're at. And now we can at least send a tow truck to where they're at instead of trying to play, 1,000 questions. Helped out a lot with reducing that time and improving the customer satisfaction on, getting a tow truck to them or a new vehicle for them to continue on their journey. Urban development and planning, that one's kind of interesting. One country wanted to understand traffic patterns of people landing on a plane and then figure out where their journeys were. So what I did was I created a nice time series of geospatial, so I could say, where was Charlie in the last 24 hours? And I can rope off areas and say, hey, was any journeys in this area? And they use that for figuring out where to put things that incoming tourists might go visit and optimize their urban development for optimizing that tourist happiness. Telecommunications, I'm going to blend that with the marketing and advertising. I got a little picture there, lunch discount. So the telecom community, was doing some things where they wanted to enhance customer usage of, make them happier about being on their network. And you could opt into a ad-driven thing where, hey, you're a customer of our network, and I want to give you a discount on lunch. Sadly, that might have been me. Hopefully you don't take that back, but they were able to make some money off their network that they weren't planning on. So that was kind of cool for them. The other things that was there, it wasn't all about ads, was also optimizing cell tower locations and power that they give to the cell towers. We could do some analytics on was an iPhone or an Android having issues, or a certain vendor of whatever certain vendor of the cell phones was having issues with certain brands of cell towers. We were figuring that out for you. And then lastly, travel and transportation, right? So, hey, if you made a flight in the United States, the odds are high that you might have been having GemFire in the background. We're definitely helping out with logistics around passengers and inventory that the planes are at, and the personnel. Okay, I'm sure that there's more out there, but that's, limited time in this webinar. So we talked a lot about those use cases. Super complicated, right? Because that's what those companies are doing to stay in business. But from a GemFire perspective, it's not that hard, right? You have two main modes that I've used in most of those architectures. Event-based, right? So maybe it was some kind of message off my cell phone came in, triggers some application logic. Am I supposed to be here? Am I on my journey? Like, was there a corridor that I was supposed to be on? And I can do some kind of, event and then figure out if I'm supposed to be there. And then on demand, and that's going to be what our demo is going to show, is users are interacting with the system on the information they need, right? So in my little demo, I'm going to highlight an area and then see who's in that area. You could also combine the two, right? I can actually get those events and then shoot off, hey, who's in my area, right? So I'm walking around and I want to see if there's any Starbucks in the area. Event driven comes in, and then it says, hey, within 1 mile, there's a Starbucks or something like that. Really cool stuff. And I kind of crossed off the complexity and the simplicity of integration. It's all about what you want to do, right? But GemFire has all the options for it, and we try to make it as simple as possible. And I'll show you some code on how simple it is to do that query. And then, just building these solutions on top of GemFire. It's been a reliable solution supporting our customers for decades, right? When I first started, it was like 2004, so 20 years, right? GemFire helping out the solution I built, and they're still using that solution. So really good stuff. In fact, we don't get any support calls from them. So cool. All right, so let's talk about this demo that I'm going to do. I felt it would be necessary because it is more than one moving part, right? So it's somewhat complicated of a setup, but at the end of the day, you're going to see that it's not that much. A lot of it's just getting the geospatial data into it. So what I did is I created an active traffic simulation. So I found a KML file that had all the shipping lanes, or whatever you want to call it, corridors. Basically, can I drive up and down a freeway for shipping in the state of California? What I did is I created a simulator that randomly places a vehicle on those lanes, and then had them randomly move about at 50 to 70 miles an hour. So really cool stuff. It gets us a nice looking demo, right? And then I try to use as simple of a data model as possible, so it's only the current location, so that way you get to see like how to get something going. And then we could always make it more complicated, but it's hard to make it more simpler, post facto. So our data model is very simple. It's just a unique identifier with the latitude and longitude of wherever it was reporting off of. I didn't want to go too crazy and put in like, hey, this is Charlie, and put in some extra data, but it's super easy to do that. You just kind of do a join on the unique event identifier, which could be a key to another region where you have the expanded data in. Okay, so the components in the architecture, I'm going to have a web server, which basically is going to be serving up maps that I can interact with. And the way that I interact is I'm going to draw some bounding boxes, and then that'll trigger a REST interface to be kicked off in the background. The REST interface is what's actually going to be doing the hard work here of returning all the vehicles in the area, right? And it's going to be returned at a memory speed, so it's pretty fast. And then, you just keep on moving around and making queries. I didn't put in any event driven, so that we can see the vehicles move in real time, but easy to do. I just figured it was just one extra level that somebody else could do if they wanted to, because I want to make it look pretty simple to do, right? Just to get folks' heads wrapped around how to use GemFire in this way. Okay, so how do I set things up? So I have a GemFire cluster, and how did I configure it to use all this stuff? Well, I deploy my domain classes, so my values, that way I can actually go off and build the indexes. I created the index, gave it a name, told it what region it's going to work off of, and then gave it a thing that basically binds my domain objects to something that GemFire can understand. So that's that location info serializer. So that's the one that, just in case your field names weren't called that long, maybe there were some complex object that, you had to calculate things. Anyway, that's the thing that gets us down to the point where I can do my geometry code encoding. And then I create the region, and then I tell it, hey, I wanted it to be partitioned so that way it could scale. If I was, actually doing this in real life, I'd want to do that. I didn't turn on persistence just because I didn't want to type the word persistent. That's all you have to do. All right, so that's how I configured GemFire. Not too many lines there. Hopefully it all makes sense. If not, gemfire.dev documentation shows you all the details. All right, so let's lumping it all back in together. I don't think I talked about this. Yes, I did talk about the simulator. Lumping it all back together, we have the simulator pumping in the traffic into GemFire. That's working all by itself. That simulator is super complex, so I'm probably not going to touch on that in the webinar, but I'll definitely show you the web app and the REST interface, right? So simulator we might touch on. It's just, me parsing the KML and then randomly choosing an object and having it move around and all that calculation. That's difficult. That's how I'm in business on this thing. The web app, I made it as simple as possible. So we'll definitely look at that. And GemFire is doing all the storage and indexing. So it's doing all the hard work and being able to answer those queries and do the storage and being able to scale at whatever level of scale that we needed to do. Here's an interesting factoid for scale of operations. I'm trying to think of one of the ones where I was for a given country. It was a large country, not the United States because we have other issues. For this other country, it was about 4 servers doing this storage and indexing for GemFire. So you can do a lot of really good stuff if you coded it up right. And it was only 4 servers watching over, running analytics across the whole country there. Really good stuff. I wish I remember the number of subscribers that were in it, but it was quite large. Okay, I think I yapped on long enough on this slide. All right, so let's see this demo in action. Let me escape out of this. Let's talk. I want to show you a little bit of code first. So let me bring up my IntelliJ. So I wanted to do, this is the actual object that I talked about where this is the domain object that I stored inside of GemFire. And all it is just, a couple floats and a string, right? So that's all it is. And then the Geospatial web server, right? So this is our main domain object that GemFire is indexing and storing and retrieving. Really easy stuff there. Here is the Spring Boot REST application that I have. I only have the one method in there. And all I do is I say, Lucene service, go get it for this client. Go find it in go find my data that's in that rectangle, and then I just return it. Pretty easy stuff, right? So all that complicated stuff that I talked about, bounding boxes, searching geometries, we made it simple for you. Hopefully this is it. I'll show you once I get everything started. I'll show you a curl command. as I walk through the example. But this is my Spring Boot app that is basically the REST backing service to that Open Layers application. So the mapping tool I'm using is Open Layers. So that's it. I got my application YAML and the actual index page showing up with all the open layers in there. Okay, simulator, I don't even want to touch it, and I showed you the location of it. All right, so let's move on to getting things started. So let's go ahead and start the simulator. In the presentation, I'm going to show you where the source code is at. So if you do want to run it, I've already started GemFire in the background, so that way I didn't have to, that's one less moving part that I had to worry about. Demos, everything seems to fail during that, and I didn't want to have some kind of Wi-Fi network change or something happen for that. Anyway, so let's start up the simulator. It's going to start. It's going to go off and build, and then try to start connecting up to GemFire and pushing my tracks into, or my vehicles into GemFire. All right, I'll let that go a little bit. Building. Kind of wish I had it running, so that way we're gonna have to sit here and watch things dry, but let's go ahead and start the next one too, so that way they both can be working concurrently. So now I'm starting up my web application, and let's see if that's finished. All right, so my Spring Boot finally started after building. It's using my development profile, and we should start seeing it connect up to GemFire right now. That's, boy, why is it so slow? It's because I'm doing a demo. Normally this is seconds. All right, maybe my antivirus is kicking in the background. All right, so now there you go. Now everything's working. It's pumping in tracks. You should see some more output, and there we go. So we're injecting all our drivers. So now I'm putting in drivers. I forget how many hundreds of thousand drivers I got, our vehicles that are in there. And then our web app should be up and running. Looks like it is. So let's go do some working on the map here. So I'm gonna hit refresh to make sure everything's good. And let me zoom out. So like I said, it works on state of California. So I'm going to just zoom into an area. Comic-Con's this week or next week. So let's zoom in on San Diego. And I'm going to just create a bounding box that I'm going to go and say, show me the vehicles in this area. There was no vehicles over there, but there are some over here. And you can see I put a little number in there. So if I zoom in, you get the idea. We got some cars moving, or vehicles moving around on the freeway here, and I can go through and I can just zoom in on that area, and I can keep on sending in those queries, and eventually that car should move. Maybe he's there. Somebody moved into that spot, somebody moved on. You get the idea. So let's go off and pretty easy stuff. So that showed us the web server creating the bounding box, or the JavaScript creating the bounding box, calling my REST applications, and returning it. So that's that code in action where I showed you the REST commands. Let's zoom way out and get some more data points. I think in the background, I set some property to limit the number of responses down to 100, but you get the idea. Like it comes back pretty quick on shooting these bounding boxes in there and getting all the data responses back. All right, so that's some cool stuff. Let's go back to here to my command line. So I already set up a curl command where I basically drew a bounding box in a small area and said, hey, let's go off and see this in action. So here's the query where I send in my min, lats, longs, max. So it's your bounding box. And there comes the result. So you get the idea. It happens really quickly. that's my data model that I was using, right? I had a UID of some number, and here's my laps and longs. I forget how I even made up the UIDs. I think it was a string, but I think it's a number, right, at the end of the day. All right, so really cool stuff. Let's see, I'm checking on time here. Let's go back to the presentation because I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover there. Let's go back to the presentation. All right, just looking at this to see if I forgot something. I didn't make any notes on, making sure I touch on topics. So let's wrap up on this, right? So we got to see how GemFire leverages in-memory processing for lightning fast performance, right? Well, I mean, I'm just running on my laptop, but if we scaled out, you can handle millions of operations per second with GemFire. I mean, it's depending on your data model and your compute and your infrastructure, it's only limited by that. We looked at quite a bit of the features in GemFire. There's much more there. I only touched on the surface. The core API, you saw how easy it was, right? You saw how easy it was to query GemFire. There's not much. We tried to make it as easy as possible. Geospatial use cases, we talked about a bunch there, right? All the different ways that we can use GemFire, and I'm pretty sure you have many ways that you're thinking about now. So we're there for it. And then we saw that live simple demo of GemFire in action, where we could have seen like its ability to return those objects, the REST interface. It's super simple. I mean, what was it? 3 lines of code? I guess I should be on full screen. 1, 2, 3. All right. So let's look at Q&A here. Let's see. I have to figure out.
I do have a few questions here for you. Here, Charlie. I don't know if you see me now. Hello. I'm back.
All right. There you go.
Well, you talked a lot about the lightning fast performance that GemFire, VMware Tanzu GemFire has. Now we have some lightning fast questions for you. So one of the questions is, when is this available? Is this available now?
Yes, availability. It's already been in GemFire for a long time. You can go download that now. Just go over to gemfire.dev and click download. And you want to download 2 components, right? So GemFire itself and GemFire Search. And the reason why we made them 2 separate things is some of our enterprise customers are on Java 8 and Lucene needs Java 11. So you would want to run GemFire on Java 11. So I didn't want to be exclusive of our customers and not updating Lucene and being able to do all that really cool geospatial. So you have to download GemFire and GemFire Search. Just head over to gemfire.dev and you can download it right there.
Excellent. Another question we had here was regarding pricing. Not sure if we'd say that here on this presentation, but we can also give a contact if someone had any information or any questions, they can contact you directly, or is there an email alias they should reach out to as well?
You're hitting me on the hard ones, right? So pricing, I think, yeah, I don't know it, right? So I'm pretty sure we can get you in touch with one of our sales associates and get you that pricing if you're interested. I'm just trying to think of how to reach out to that. I can't even think of the mailing list because we switched over to Broadcom, right? I'm pretty sure if we reach out to support, our support channels, which that should be easier to find, they'll be able to get you in touch with somebody.
We can also include we'll look it up and we'll include the email alias in the follow-up email as well.
Yeah, let's do that. That would be great, because if you are interested and you want to just talk to me further about your use cases and do some architectural stuff, I'm up for it too.
Excellent. Those are all the questions we have here from the audience members. Charlie, I know if you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up today.
No, just take a look at the source code. If you have any questions, you can even just send me some notes through the GitHub URL, or we'll get you in touch with the contact information post webinar.
Excellent. Thank you, Charlie. And I didn't have a link here that I sent out, but I will send it out right now. If you guys didn't know, VMware Explorer is just right around the corner, taking place next month in Las Vegas. In August, there's also Spring One Virtual, also taking place, streaming sessions from Explore straight to your computer screens. Charlie, are you presenting at all? Is there any GemFire sessions that we have at Explore this year?
My 2 sessions were turned down, so unfortunately we can't chat there. But I'm sure that there's somebody there going to be representing GemFire and the data products. So go check out the booth, and one of my associates will be there. We haven't figured that out yet. So if I might be the one going, it might be one of my associates.
There you go. You can ask, if you have questions, you can ask Charlie. Hopefully he'll be there and you can ask him in person.
Yeah.
Any questions you have about Tanzu GemFire or anything related to data. I'm sure Charlie got that. But I just want to say thank you again, Charlie, for today's session, for all the time, for your great presentation, for helping answer all the questions. Most importantly, all of you guys for watching us live. This has been recorded, so anyone watching in the future, hello. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you guys at our next event. Thank you, Charlie. Talk to you guys soon.